Hi, everyone, and welcome to Scale and Adapt, the podcast where we explore how SaaS leaders build resilience, stay agile, and adapt to consistent change. I'm Kathryn Aimaq, founder and CEO of Scale Advisors AI, where we help organizations accelerate growth and build operational strength through data-driven strategy and intelligent automation. On the show, I talk with founders, executives, and innovators who are navigating real challenges, from market shifts to team dynamics to product pivots, and we dig into what's actually working. This isn't about hyper theory. It's about what it really takes to stay resilient when things get unpredictable. Today, I'm joined by Seamus Ruiz-Earle, founder and former CEO of Carabiner Group. Carabiner Group is a team of trusted advisors, certified consultants, and industry leaders who make revenue operations easy for clients across the globe. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Let's start with a little context. Tell us about your journey with Carabiner Group and your current responsibilities.
Absolutely, and thanks for having me on the show, Kathryn. It's a pleasure to be here. Carabiner was the product of a COVID project run amok. I was a student in college and graduated during the middle of the pandemic, had my full-time job offer delayed by 9 months and $90K in student loan debt, and needed to do something with my time. And so set up my own shop doing Salesforce consulting that fundamentally took off during the pandemic and forced me into a difficult decision about, do I do this full time or do I just keep this as a passion project? Made the leap off the short pier and started paddling. And, 3.5 years later, had scaled to 40 or 50 team members, close to $10 million in ARR, and sold the business to a larger consulting firm called SBI Growth, which is where I am now, leading our RevOps division, working with large technology companies, helping them transform their ecosystem. So it's been an interesting past 5 years or so, and made even more interesting by the advent of AI, which hopefully we get to dip into today a little bit as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Seamus. I mean, it's wonderful to hear how even during a period like COVID, so many great things can come out of that, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's somewhat funny to think about because I was so dead set on being the guy who lived at Deloitte for 30 years, made partner, did that whole thing. I was very looking forward to, in fact, working at a big company with quote unquote stability.
Right.
And I never would have thought that I would have gotten into the startup world as deeply as I have. But now, of course, wouldn't change a thing. It's been an incredible ride with some incredible people.
That's wonderful to hear. Seamus, tell us, how or what's been taking up most of your bandwidth these days in your current role?
Well, one of the biggest transition points when moving to SBI has been the customers that we serve. So historically, Carabiner was one of the first practitioners of a RevOps as a service model that was very popular amongst venture-backed startups, Series A to Series E, give or take. And we worked with over 500 companies over those 3.5, 4-year period. And we got a lot of domain expertise there. Awesome, fantastic. Wouldn't trade that. But when we joined SBI, we shifted our ICP significantly to private equity-backed companies between 100 million and $1 billion in revenue. And so my bandwidth these days is advising those boards, those C-suite executives on the transformation that they're going to need to, undergo, how they should do it, the change management associated with it, and what pieces of it they need to accelerate or decelerate based off of the AI movement. And so advising on those very large transactions and helping those folks navigate what is fundamentally a very tumultuous time in the best of situations, with against the backdrop of a technology landscape that is ever evolving as well.
Interesting. Can you share a little bit about maybe the way that they take the need for the change?
Yeah, I think it depends, of course, on who's leading each of these organizations, but the one universal piece is that each leader, each chairman, each CEO recognizes the need for technology to be a major value driving lever for their organization. What they are most of them are wrestling with is how and when to embrace it.
Right.
Meaning that it's not as clear it really truly isn't as clear when you're dealing with 2,000 or 5,000 sellers how to put AI into a business,
Right.
right? Like generative AI, alone is not going to move the needle the way that truly rebuilding an operations function might, or
Right.
rebuilding the way that you do your CPQ process or how your deal desk operates on an international stage. These are hairy, complex problems that fundamentally start at an org, structure, comp, quota, all of these things before you even get into how do I layer technology into it. And so they're looking for folks who have been there and done that to help, advise them on that journey.
Interesting. And I don't want to take it into the negative, but for those leaders who don't want to adapt to the change, what are you seeing happening there?
Um, as of yet, there aren't any real damning consequences because it's so early.
Right.
I think the example that I use to try to galvanize motion, though, is the fact that, if we believe that AI fundamentally is a paradigm shift, is as big of a paradigm shift as we think it is,
Right.
then, you know, fundamentally, how do I say this? Well, eh, the way we need to be looking at problems has changed as well, meaning that the there are for all of our businesses problems that we historically have not been able to solve and therefore have sort of discounted as facts of operating.
Right.
Hey, this thing is always going to exist. We need to adapt and overcome it, but we can't actually solve that issue because it's systemic. It's the nature of doing business in whatever space we're operating in.
Hmm.
AI has made it where some of those problems, if not all of those problems, are now on the table to be solved, right?
Right.
Whether that's saying, hey, the data didn't used to exist. Well, the data exists now somewhere, and we can probably go task an agent to go find that data. The data is too complicated. It overlays 6 different data sets. Well, you don't need a human to look at those 6 different data sets again, and research agent can go and overlay all 6 of them and tell you the needle in that haystack in seconds, let alone, months that it would have taken a human. And like that fundamentally is really challenging to wrap your head around. But once you do, the way it can transform a business, and as such, the threat of that transformation if your competitors do it first is really fundamentally existential for these businesses, right? Like we are at a point, this is the dinosaur meteor hitting in the next 2 years or so, where Fortune 100s may cease to be Fortune 100s because they haven't moved fast enough to make the changes. And that's why we're seeing so much investment in this space.
Seamus, I couldn't have said it better. That's absolutely the truth. I mean, being in the AI space and seeing how much, specifically when you talked about, not just the meteor hitting the dinosaur era, right? But it's the needles in the haystack that can be found so easily with AI now in a matter of seconds. It's absolutely phenomenal. And the fact that, these 100, Fortune 100 organizations can collapse so easily if they're not, first in line to start adapting to these particular changes.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there are moats for sure, right? Of how the brand is going to become important, and perceived quality will still be a factor, and all of this. But when we think about gaining market share or stealing market share, that upstart that's been trailing behind you, nipping at your heels for 10 years. I mean, if they go and make the investment and figure it out, they can go steal 10, 20, 30% of your market share in a year, which was never possible before,
Right,
right? And that's where you have to start playing offense and defense at the same time,
right, right,
in a way these monoliths didn't need to, previously.
right, and awfully quickly too.
Yes, yes, and
Very
without
quickly.
like a foundation of, hey, here's the right way, quote unquote, to do it, because everything is happening so quickly that
Quickly.
it's not like there's this base of knowledge you can go study and get your MBA concentration in and then hire that person. And
Right,
that traditional way of working in corporate America just isn't relevant here the same way as it used to be.
right, absolutely. Thank you for that, Seamus. So a lot of what you just shared around the AI, I mean, I think it speaks closely to what my next question was going to be for you, specifically around noticing changes in your industry. Is there anything else you wanted to share around the industry changes?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was one of the things that prompted my merger with SBI. Was I think the whole RevOps ecosystem and the RevOps strategy ecosystem is changing fundamentally, in that technology is going to become a commodity versus the way that you use it.
Right.
Right. And we've always talked about RevOps becoming more strategic than tactical, and how that is the aspiration for a lot of folks who operate in this ecosystem. But the reality is that for the last decade or so, it hasn't been that. It's been, far more tactical. Hey, how do we make these systems work together? How do we, you know, build this report right now because our VP of sales is asking for it, versus adding this field because the field service agent needs it to track this piece of random data. You know, agents are coming on the heels, right? It's gonna come and be able to have a chat prompt that allows you to go create your custom field instead of needing an admin. And frankly, I didn't want to ride that out without the support of a larger firm with more differentiated value propositions. What is going to stay consistent and perhaps become more elevated is, okay, we have access to this data in a way that we didn't have before.
Right.
We have the tools to ask it queries and questions and get to data points that we couldn't have before. Once we know once we can ask the questions and get answers from it, what do we do with that information is still a, very strategic function that the RevOps experts are going to need to be able to be positioned to answer alongside their corporate leadership.
Hmm.
And that's at Series A companies, and it's at Fortune 100s everywhere in between. Folks who can interpret the data and recommend a course of action are still going to be very much in high demand. And if you can do that with a baseline of knowledge from previous engagements, previous ecosystem experience, that will make that that step, that next course of action, the turning of the ship, that much more confident, rather than saying, oh, we think this might be the right thing to do, but we aren't really sure.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think you just again answered my next question to you, which was specifically around how has it played into the way you run things today. So,
Hmm.
with the acquisition and the additional tools and support, is there anything else you want to share about how you run things today?
I think, one of the things is that we've taken a very proactive step towards investing in AI technology to alleviate or to accelerate our own strategy consulting engagements. So
Hmm.
SBI acquired another platform called WayForge,
Hmm.
and WayForge Signal, which is an AI go-to-market engine that we are
Right.
using to guide our actual engagements, get to that higher degree of data in a week rather than in 2 months, right? And look at very complex data sets and get to those answers, which then allows our strategists who have been in industry for 25 years to recommend a course of action, go to execute that course of action far quicker and with a far higher degree of certainty, because there are hundreds of thousands of data points behind it supporting that course of action.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
so, to the previous analogy of dinosaur, right? Like a meteor, this AI movement is going to have an existential impact on, go to market strategy firms who fail to innovate. And we've taken a very pragmatic approach to incorporating technology so that our market offering is differentiated in a way that others of our size and scale aren't doing yet.
Got it. Yeah. And then how do you see in the next with this quick movement of AI, where do you see this shaping it, or how do you see it shaping things in the next 6 to 12 months?
Um, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more vertical specific AI applications
Right.
coming to market. There's billions of dollars being put into the venture markets around this space,
Hmm.
most of which are operating in stealth, building, going to market very slowly, surely. I think that's going to really pop here. We're going to have a lot of winners, a lot of losers. Um, but I think vertical application, we see a lot of it in the media about, oh, okay, ChatGPT, OpenAI, like very abstracted, big picture pieces. We've yet to see the AI for hairdressers. I don't know what that looks like necessarily,
It's
but there
funny.
will
My
be
mom's a
one.
hairdresser, so I'd love
So
to know what that's
that's what, like,
like.
it's something's going to happen. Maybe it's matching the shade. Maybe you take a picture of someone's
Right.
hairstyle and it uses the AI to analyze. You should use this this box dye
Right.
instead of that box dye. That is in and of itself probably, I don't know, $100 million industry that, you know, needs an AI,
I think you
to
just gave me an
support.
idea for a new business.
There you go, right? Like but that's the crazy part about where we're actually at right now in this whole thing, which is, you know, the markets are just totally expanding, and everything that we see around us has an AI application that could be built to support it. And so I think whether we see it in the next 6 to 12 or it takes us a little longer, I think that's ultimately where we are ending up going is like a fragmentation. Last 5 years or so, everyone's been moving towards platform. I don't actually know that that's the winner take all market right now. I think it's, can you build something that's hyper specific that provides 10x the value of what you pay for it because your dev costs are so low, and indexing on that, investing on that.
Got it. And thank you for that. So far you've shared with us a lot about the positives and the benefits.
Mm.
Can you share with us any of the struggles that you may be having?
Um, I mean, change is hard across any organization. So I think the change management angle to AI is the biggest piece that no one's really solved for yet. And I don't know if there's a quote unquote solution. There's just a lot of pain you have to go through in evolving an organization to embrace something that, you know, is paradigm shifting for that
Uh-huh.
team. And so we're seeing that across the board, right? Whether it's, inside of our own teams, how do we use this thing effectively to be, better stewards of our capital and of our client engagements, or whether it is on behalf of our clients, and how do we modify a 500-person sales org to use this technology better, with the acknowledgement that for 200 of those people, it might mean that they don't have jobs in the same way that they used to. Doesn't necessarily mean that, that means that the jobs are going away, but they are evolving.
Uh-huh.
And the ability to evolve is a trait that, fundamentally can be really quite challenging for people across all stages of their career. So change management and change evolution now is something that I think is really causing a lot of pain and strife.
For change management specifically at Carabiner Group, how are you managing that tactically?
I think part of it is being very quite clear about what, uh, shall we say, what are the expectations of the team. It's one thing to say, "Hey, I want you to go and embrace AI." It is a very different thing to say, "I want you to embrace AI in this specific way at this specific time for this specific outcome." And so documentation and clear expectation setting, and really walking through the why of something is helping to bridge that gap.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think another element which is proving useful is, um, not being so stuck in our ways that we're committed to a course of action if the market shifts or the evolution changes, because everything is changing so quickly. And explaining that at the forefront of a transformation is helpful, to be like, "Hey, we're making this shift. Doesn't mean we know exactly where we're going to end up at the end of this, because, you know, it's a big ship and it takes a minute to move. And unfortunately, the pace of change is so quick that you could start a move and realize that, hey, we're 10 degrees off. We need to shift 10 degrees to get back on where the actual market ended up at the end of this."
Right.
And that's a little bit different as well compared to other previous shifts.
Right. And I mean, my team always tells me, Catherine, you're the queen of the why behind the what, right? It's always a clear communication and a clear, defining exactly what the why is behind the what gets others to be on board with you. And that's a great thought process to have,
Yeah,
Seamus. It's wonderful.
my dad has a saying around SWOT analysis: the strengths, weaknesses,
Right.
opportunities, and threats.
Hmm.
Um, he calls it a good SWOT analysis needs to evolve into a so what analysis, right?
Right.
Like, great, we've identified all of this, but now what? And what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to adapt based off of the knowledge that we now have? And
Right, right.
I
That's
think,
wonderful. Tying it back to for everybody to know exactly what the goal is. It's huge in the entire paradigm shift of the transition. So good to hear about that. Let me shift a little bit into future goals and, any potential problems that you may see arising. In 12 months from now, where would you like to be with your team? Did I say 12 years or did I say 12
You
months?
said 12 months.
I did say it right. Okay,
Yeah,
12
no,
months
no,
from now.
you're right on. I think, if I fast forward to then, I think we are still determining the highest alpha in the shortest period of time that we can cause for our clients through the use of these technologies. I don't know for sure where the answer is in terms of, is it diagnosing?
Mhm.
So far, right? Like one of the things that is really valuable about AI is that it can get us greater certainty about what we think we know, because it can analyze data in ways that we couldn't previously do. And if
Mhm.
you're a data driven decision maker, that's quite helpful in getting to a point of conviction. If we can then bridge that point of conviction to point of accuracy or making the right decision, right? Data
Mhm.
is useful because it applies, right? Like if we have a thesis, it can support that thesis or disprove that thesis. If we can then be able to use the AI to identify the blind spots or the data that doesn't necessarily support our conclusions and help disprove the decisions we were going to make, because we've found contrary data points. That's when I think about like the way the tools are operating right now, most of it is being used to affirm decisions that are already like in somebody's brain, rather than identifying the weak spots or identifying the fact that, hey, that isn't actually the right decision. If we can layer those two together and make it so that we can be advisors for our clients in a way that helps them make the right decision more often, that is a very valuable proposition. That's where I'd like to be in 12 months. I think the technology will get there. I think then it becomes, how do we bridge that with a services wrapper that allows us to be able to be those advisors in a way that's, aligned with where our clients want to go. That's where I'd like to be in 12 months. We'll see if we can
Okay.
get there.
Hope you can. And let me ask, if you could fix just one thing tomorrow, and I feel like it's around what you just talked about. If there's one thing that you can fix tomorrow to unlock everything else, what would it be?
I think it would be mindset around the tooling and the application of the tooling itself. It's a really challenging thing to grasp how to use technology uh, that is changing so quickly that when you blink, you're already a mile behind.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming up with ways to communicate and to convey the most current state of the technology, I would change how that's done, and come up with better ways of doing that, where you can get everyone on the same page that much quicker, so that you can make the right decisions about where to place the investments moving forward.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, you're absolutely telling such a such an honest truth about you blink and you're already behind, right? I mean, how do we deal with that? How do
Well,
we
I'll tell you how most people deal with it, right? I mean, I think the ones of us, those of us who are really in this, you and I, day to day, like we're in this mix. Uh, I think that currently, the most accurate and up to date data sources for this movement are in person dinners in San Francisco
Uh-huh.
and tech Twitter. That's really where the cutting edge stuff is being talked about and or published in its own way, of saying, hey, today I use this new model to do X, Y, and Z thing. There is no journal of artificial intelligence science that you can go read the same way, which, when you really think about it, there probably should be, right? There should be, just as we release peer-reviewed studies of, biology developments, the AI science stuff is happening, you know, inside of the vibe coding, shared offices of San Francisco,
Mhm.
and then it may be used to power some new venture. It may be used to make someone, ridiculously wealthy, but you're not necessarily reading about it in the same way that you could have any other type of paradigm shift technology that
Mhm.
gets released, peer reviewed, in Nature Journal or whatever. And so I don't know. I think honestly, you just have to be as close to these people as you can be because they're the ones moving the needle, um, in the hallways and on the streets and in the private dining rooms, over sushi and hot pot.
Right. And let me ask you about that specifically. So how can you give any nuggets or tips to our listeners on how they can get into those types of dinners with the appropriate people to learn
Yeah,
more?
I think the communities exist, right? Like I'm actually, funny enough, I'm wearing a hat of a community called Pavilion. That is one that I've been involved in for quite a long time. That's directly tied towards sales and marketing professionals in
Uh-huh.
B2B SaaS. These dinners are happening, with them. There's about one every night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday throughout the year, in various different locales, right? So micro communities, I think, is one place
Uh-huh.
where, sure, it's pay to play. You pay whatever it is, 3 or 4 grand a year, well worth the investment, to be able to gain access to these conversations. Another is to create your own community around it, right? People are very willing, I've found, to talk about these things because everyone's going through similar struggles. And if you can't find someone who's inviting you to join a community, the reality is that you can do this at Denny's, for $100 a week, if you really wanted to, and be the facilitator of your own thing. And if you invite people, it turns out a lot of people will show up. And you know, I've always found that to be surprising. This week is Dreamforce happening in San Francisco.
Okay.
Um, Monday and Tuesday, I was up there, in back-to-back 30-minute sessions, 12 to 14 meetings a day, listening to people, talking to people, learning what they're working on because, that's what you got to do in order to stay up to date. Everything from bench sites, and benchmarking, David Spitz to, Karan Chaudhry with Sprouts.ai to, you know, reporters from the information to Salesforce account executives, right? Like trying to piece together the tapestry. Again, if you ask people, they will talk to you. Um, if you do it in the right way.
Excellent. Thank you, Seamus, for that. Anything else that you want to share with us in regards to the topics we've talked about today?
No, I think it can be really, um, shall we say, uh, imposing for people to start on the journey of learning more about this stuff and really embracing it because it can be, on the one side, it can be really scary to say, hey, this thing is existential. On the other side, I like to take a tact of saying, well, what are the things that annoy me the most about my life? And are there ways that I can, you know, use the motivation to solve for a problem X, Y, and Z way, uh, to be the vehicle through which I learn about this thing that can otherwise be pretty scary. Because if I can solve that problem, solve that issue through the technology, then not only have I made it slightly more relatable, I've set a goal out there that I'm trying to solve towards, and I can move incrementally down that journey. So one thing I might suggest is picking a problem or picking an area of opportunity in your own life, personally, professionally, spiritually, physically, whatever it might be, and using that as a frame, a lens, a schema through which you can try to start on your own AI journey. That certainly worked for me.
Excellent. Thank you. And how can somebody get in touch with your organization, with Carabiner Group, if they're looking or interested in what you were able to do for them?
Well, certainly available on LinkedIn, and luckily there is only one Seamus Ruiz-Earle, out there, so very Googleable as well, and
Very Googleable.
always
Lots of
happy to chat with
details.
people. So
Excellent. Thank you for that so much. Such an insightful conversation. Again, a huge thank you to our guest, Seamus. He has been a joy to speak with today. Thank you for joining me today, sharing your perspective, specifically on the resilience and adoption around AI. One takeaway that really actually stood out, actually two takeaways that stood out to me specifically and I could have it's something that I should be telling people every day. The moment you start learning about something, something new comes up, right? And it's just in a matter of a blink of an eye, right? And then secondly, go out and curate your own, you know, fancy dinners, invite people. Everybody wants to talk about this, make it a round table. That should be, a way to really be in the know, for lack of better terms. Simple ideas, but ones that can change everything when applied with intention. So thank you so much for sharing those nuggets with us, Seamus. For those listening, if your company is tackling challenges like maintaining momentum through uncertainty, aligning teams around smart data, or adapting your go-to-market limited resources, those are exactly the kinds of problems we work on every day at Scale Advisors AI. Our mission is simple. We're here to help you scale what's working and adapt what isn't. If you'd like to keep conversations going, you can find us at scaleaai.com or follow me on LinkedIn at Kathryn Aimaq. I'm so grateful you tuned in. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with your peers or leave a quick review. It really helps others discover the show. Until next time, keep scaling, keep adapting, and stay resilient.